Morning guys, Mark Fresh, ProTech Dog Training. Just got done working some dogs in the park. I've been thinking about some things because I saw a couple posts on Instagram that made me start thinking of things. Years ago, I love terminology. I love words. Words matter, right? So that's why I love Michael Ellis so much, because he really does a great job of breaking things down and understands scientific terms. And he's been a big reason in the industry that we've got solidity. In other words, concrete words that we now are using compared to the old days where we had a dog trainer two cities over and half a state over, whatever, and everybody would be calling things differently and they'd be using the same stuff. So I just saw Zane Stoops, who's a well-known dog trainer, retired military dog man, out of the military, and he's online now and doing a lot of things as far as showing himself online. So he did a post talking about the bark box. That's what I call it, okay? And he's getting into some deeper things in regards to the bark box. Surface, slick surface, right? And stressors that go into that when you're working the dog, because that tool can be used a myriad of different ways and for different things. Now, what I'm talking about that I'm terminology, my verbiage for it, is called the bark box. That's what I've heard it called, and that's kind of what stuck with me. But he's calling it something different, and he's highlighting it real deep, and he's trying to get across some points. One of the main points was he had a slick surface on the bottom of it. The trough is still the same. The bar across the top, you can peg a dog into the center of it, and the dog's centered forward, and it's like having blinders on the dog, right? Because he's in a trough, and he can't see anywhere out of that, so now you keep the dog centered, and it's a tool to be used for all kinds of things. But his accent points got into terminology that was just a little bit much. Like you said, he's a little overboard, but it's all right. You know, it's not that he's right or wrong. He can call it anything he wants to. Just don't call me late for dinner. Right? You get my point? We all have little style points and things that we do, but it's interesting to me, again, because of the perspective that I have doing this trade for so many years and being around so many trainers and watching so many things get done, that my perspective is a little different than most people, you know. And then my interest in regards to terminology, how somebody says something, that goes into me wanting to be a good teacher, because I watch these people and I say, well, that's a great way of saying that. That's a good accent point that I can use for my customers, right? Because remember, in the end, it's not all about the dog. It's about your customers and educating your customers. It's one of the things I liked about Michael Ellis on Leoberg, that they came up with a syllabus with a whole bunch of scientific names, and they stamped that on all these different videos, and it was always a part of that video where terminology is going to start to matter and be consistently the same across the whole platform. And now everybody knows what you're talking about when you're talking about certain things, right? Terminal bridge marker is a terminal bridge marker. A click or a yes, right? Good is a duration marker. So now that has taken a hold because of Michael and what he's put forward in his approach to training, right? And that's an excellent thing. So terminology, words matter. Now, my other one was Justin Rigney, another very well-known trainer, very well respected, and has a world of experience and knowledge way above mine, but at the same time, because he's law enforcement, so he's got a good mix. Besides the fact the guy's a hell of a trainer and has done the same kind of thing that I've done. Soak it up. He's always talking about nothing that he's got is ever really his. He's stolen it. He's taken it from other trainers. I've done the same thing my whole life. I'm constantly observing, watching, and I pick up things all the time. And I'll steal it any day of the week, you know, and it doesn't matter. You know, where does it come from? What matters is what's the application. So he started talking about the dominant dog collar and what he's using it for, and taking the wind away from the dog in regards to get him to reset, take the wind away from the dog, and now he calms. So I've got into that subject about 3 or 4 months ago, maybe 6 months ago, who knows how long ago, but I was talking about the difference between a pinch collar and dealing with aggression with a pinch versus with that dominant dog collar or leash, right, where you're taking the wind away from him. And my explanation of this is different than his. He's putting forward videos talking about this subject, and he's accenting it, and he's getting into things that may not be that easy to understand for somebody that hasn't done it, right? I know, because I've dealt with all kinds of aggression cases and had to, what we call hang a dog up, putting him up in the air, kind of a dog daddy. And I mention him just because he's almost famous because of what he does to the dogs, which I don't agree with. and then the public getting attracted to him to the point where they're letting him, here, take my dog, and let him hang the dog up and then go walk away and go to the next city. I'm sorry to tell you, but it doesn't work that way. It's conditioning, right? Does it work as far as what I've got to do to deal with the dog and make sure I'm the dominant force in that dog's life and that I don't allow the dog to chew me up? Yeah, it protects me, it keeps me safe. But here's the thing. What I found out over the last year or so as I'm working with these tools, the dominant dog collar, the leashes that are out that basically tighten up on the dog's neck and take the wind away from the dog. That's the way they're designed to be used in that respect. It's a slip collar or a slip leash that's on the dog. When you take the air away from an aggression dog like that and you put him up in the air and he can't breathe, his brain goes to a different place. Okay? Think of it like somebody that's swimming and they're in a panic because they're going to drown. They're screaming, they're yelling, and the first thing the lifeguard learns is not to get near him because that person will drag them down too, right? So you have to knock them out or whatever they do. I mean, I'm not a lifeguard, but in a general sense, I'm kind of overviewing it, right? You know that that's not safe because that person's panicking and their brain is in a mode of panic and total stress. So it's the same thing happens with a dog. When you put the dog up in the air and he's got a pinch collar and his brain is being flooded with pain, his brain goes to a different place. It goes to want to fight, and you actually will increase the problem and not make it better. You're dealing with reactivity. You need to teach the dog to settle down, to calm down. When you put the dog up in the air and you put that, and that floods that dog's brain with pain, especially the Mastiff breeds, pitties and things like that. Pain to them, they've been bred, but that means to fight. Okay, so when you're talking Cane Corsos and Mastiffs and a lot of these different breeds, that's what's going to happen to that dog's brain when you put pain on him and you flood the brain and you try to hang him up and deal with him. You're only going to make it worse. That's the difference between the tool. The tool, when you choke him out and you take away the air, the dog has the ability to think and he goes to a different place in his brain, and that's much more conducive to dealing with that reactivity, that aggression that's coming at you when you're using a slip collar or a slip lead. Okay, and you hang him up, you take the air away from him, his brain goes to a different place that's manageable and it's conducive for the dog's learning in that situation. Okay, so it's very important to understand. I got a lot of people, like I said, about a year or so ago when I started accenting some of these points, I started to have people talk about using a pinch collar and doing that in a reactivity situation. And as far as I'm concerned, that is totally the wrong thing to do. Right? It's not conducive to that dog's learning and getting through the reactivity. Okay? So if you're dealing with reactive dogs, you're dealing with aggression, and you need to go to some of these physical situations where you're going to get your ass chewed up if you don't control the animal and he's going to chew you up, then you need to put the dog up in the air, take his front feet off the ground so he doesn't have that front feet and can't push up against you, and he's not as dangerous, and you're not going to get bit. That's the whole idea. And then you let the dog's brain calm, put him up in the air a little bit, and as soon as you take the wind away and he calms down, then you kind of slowly put him back on the ground and then go right into your training, whatever you're going to do, redirect him, whatever you're going to do, okay? But again, the slip collars and the slip leashes are something that Justin's accenting because he's using them with his bark fence, right? He's got a fence, he's using low fence, right? And he's using that for some exercises towards what they've come up with in that regards. And it's an excellent tool. I love what they did. I actually went to their seminar when they came up and they were using the bark fence, and I took Buddy out there with me, and Buddy made it look easy, but at the same time, I understand exactly what he's using. He's using territorial aggression. You ever seen that one video online with a YouTube video and the dogs are going crazy with each other and they're fence fighting? They're going nuts. Somebody hits the controller on the gate and it slides open and it gets open. And the dogs go, oh, hi. It's like they were never, ever angry at each other, right? That's instinct. Those drives, those are things that happen innately within the dog's core. Okay, you can't take them away. So a fence, working a fence line, has been something we've used forever. They're not doing something that's new, right? They're not doing anything that's new. It's all been there before. It's just been tweaked and then highlighted and accented to a degree that becomes a great training tool in their context that they're using it in, right? So I won't go into that. That's their world. But in a general sense, that fence line, I kind of laughed at. You could poo-poo them. You could make it negative and make negative comments about it. We've been using that sort of thing for years, but they've taken it to the next level in what they're doing in their conditioning process that's giving them what they need to do to condition these animals to do what they need to have them do, okay? So there's a lot of things that we've been doing for years. Knee popo, I'm always talking about it. Knee popo, that Bart Ballone came up with. You think that's the first? No, he tailored it into a training program. He put the whole, but the core of it is the dog's innate instincts that you're using and playing in that regards. Negative, positive, positive. And it's a pressure tool. It's something I can use for pressure. And bringing up pressure brings frustration, all kinds of things, and then take them into drive, and you displace the stress that's involved with that. And you actually increase drive states. That's why Buddy works, well, besides genetics, works so well. He's so sharp and high echelon in that regards. When he shows aggression, he doesn't play with it, right? And that's because you're bringing out drive. They do a lot of this stuff in Schutzing, right? Where they'll pop the whip, they'll come in on the dog stride, and they build drive, drill down, boom, then bite, right? The dog learns, and that creates a conditioning where it takes that dog's mind to those places within the emotional states of mind that they're after, right? So there's all kinds of things, all kinds of tricks, all kinds of things. If you can learn to watch, pay attention, learn from what you're seeing. And the same thing with videos and stuff. I can get online and watch some of this stuff and just eat it up and apply it. A lot of people, laymen, people that are just starting in training, can buy that same videos and not get the same thing out of it because they just don't have the skill and the experience behind them, right? The difference is I've got thousands of dogs that I've worked over the years since I was 12 years old, and I've got ability to read I'm constantly reading the animal, constantly seeing what's going on. It's a trained skill that I've acquired over the years. That's why I can go out in public and work environment and do what I do. And a lot of trainers are doing the same thing now, but it all started with me showing off on these videos. I've been doing it for years, okay? And I've mastered the art of using environment for training, okay? And it's something I do all over the place. And I've got it down to a science, down to the nitty-gritty, where it's involving making sure I represent myself in the store that I go into and build my relationships with that crew and get to a point where I actually have these people working with me and for me in that context, right? I can go to Tractor Supply right now, and I've got people that whole crew works with me. They're half the time they're selling me when I'm in there telling people about me being a good dog trainer. That's because I've made sure that I've built my relationships up. I'm using that environment for many myriads of things in training, but it's important that I have it available to me. It's important that I've got the staff being positive instead of negative. If you were out where you're welcome. I had one trainer, I went down to Bass Pro one time. The trainer went in, he worked the dog, and he came out after I got done working my dog. I was just outside of the door, and he comes out and he's pissed off. He's going, they just asked me to leave. I've been down here for all the time doing my thing, and they just asked me to leave. Why did they do that? Well, I knew right away. He'd outworn his welcome. That's one of the things that I read people is just like I do dogs, and I'll sense when I'm wearing out my welcome or maybe I'm getting irritable to them. You know, they're getting irritated. They're down there to do a job, and that's ring the register and make sales. That's why they're there. That's why they got their store. They're selling stuff, right? And you come in and you start making a fixture of it where you're down there all the time, and now you've just worn out your welcome, and you no longer have a positive attitude. You walk in there and you have a negative attitude. And when you do that to yourself, you do it to me too, because now they think of me in the same vein, right? I had one manager coming to me at Bass Pro asking me to keep my dog under control, and she goes, it's not you, it's that we've got a lot of trainers, we've had a couple fight situations, dog fight situations, we've had a couple, and that's because not all trainers understand how to be safe, how to personify your professionalism within that environment and do the right thing, that you're a positive influence on yourself because you need that environment and on their store. You don't want to I don't stay down here more than 20, 30 minutes. I go in and I tell them when I come in, I got 2 more dogs to work, and I say little things, little triggers that'll get me what I need, and they're willing to put up with me for that time that I need. I mean, I got all kinds of little things that I'll say to the staff as I'm working with them and joking things off and doing things in the right way, that I build a positive relationship with that environment and that staff, than I do wear out my welcome and make it a negative. So what I'm trying to highlight this, when I'm talking about it, is it's important that all trainers grow that skill. You're not just the dog, guys, it's your environment. Same thing with dog training in a general sense. It's not just the dog, it's the owner of that dog, educating that customer. I mean, there's so much more than just knowing how to get the dog to do a behavior and stroking your ego because the dog does something. That's usually the way it is. A much bigger world when you're a professional dog trainer. You're there to educate the customer. That's what I'm there for, right? I'm there to train the dog, and I enjoy it. That's why I do in kennel, because I can get the job done better and then work at training the owner after the fact, right? But it's so much more than just the dog, right? Or just the behaviors. You hear me talking about that all the time too. It's much more than just heel, sit down, stay, right? It's where's the dog's head at in the work. And you hear me say these things all the time, right? right? So hopefully some of you listen and some of you learn from some of my comments, all right? All right, I'm done. We're at Tractor Supply. I need to get dogs out and start working here. We just got done with the park. I thank you very much, guys. Mark Ferreshi, ProTech Dog Training, signing off from Tractor Supply. Talk to you later.